This video is sponsored by Big Boy Gaming. Follow the link in the description below for all of your card gaming needs.
What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the Edison Club. First and foremost, I want to go ahead and extend a huge thank you to everyone who went out of their way to comment on last week's community post, where basically I was reaching out and asking for you guys some advice, some help, kind of just gauging what the interest was and seeing what you guys wanted to hear, what you wanted to listen to on video topics and my podcast. So if you commented on that with a suggestion, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Today we're actually going to do a video talking about how to make reads, which was a very highly requested topic that we talk about. I feel like one of the things that I struggled the most with when I was first trying to learn how to make reads was making a read and just simply sticking to it. If I felt like my opponent had bottomless trap hole set, then there's no need for me to play into bottomless trap hole until I'm ready to remove the bottomless from the field. Whether that be with a card like Heavy Storm or Mystical Space Typhoon, or just summoning a monster into it that just happens to not care about bottomless trap hole, like a monster with 1400 less attack, or a card like Breaker the Magical Warrior. So lots of different choices that I can make trying to play around and read this bottomless trap hole that I feel like is in the back row. Not all reads are simple. Sometimes it can be very difficult to read your opponent depending on their skill level and their experience level within the game. I've played against opponents before where I really thought that they had a card like Starlight Road or a card like Bottomless Trap Hole, and it turns out that it was just a bluff Heavy Storm that they were really selling quite well. So a lot of things go into making your reads and making them correctly, but this video I'm hoping is going to be able to teach you guys a little bit more and give you just a little bit more insight about how to make those reads correctly. So let's go ahead and jump into this video, guys, play some cards and have some fun.
So here's a pretty basic example of a read. This is a scenario that does come up quite often in Edison. We see here my opponent is playing Blackwings. They've opened up with Black Whirlwind, normal summoning Blackwing Sure the Blue Flame, searching a copy of Blackwing Bore the Spear, and setting one back row. Now, 9 times out of 10, we're going to know that this is Icarus attack. This is a very, very common turn 1 board for Blackwing. So how do we play around Icarus attack? Icarus attack is our read, so we're going to do our best to make it where they can't activate Icarus, or if they are able to activate it, that it's not quite as impactful as it potentially could be. So we have some options here. We do have Compulse. It's not exactly the best against Blackwings, unfortunately. We have stuff like Raikou, which can trade well with Shura, which is nice. So we could theoretically do stuff like just set the Raikou, we could summon the Lila, try to hit this Icarus attack, but then unfortunately, we are going to get run over by Shura. A Compulse, if we have to Compulse the Shura, is just going to give him more pluses off of Black Whirlwind. So we kind of have to go through and think about all the different options that we have. So like Judgment Dragon's basically useless right now, Plague Spreader's basically useless, and Compulse could be better. So it looks like our best option is to do something like Raikou. So if we just set Raikou, if they want to Icarus attack this, they're going to have to destroy their own Black Whirlwind, which they really don't want to do. So this Raikou is going to trade nicely with the Shura. Now, there are a few ways that this could get messed up for you. For example, you don't want to set Compulse here as well, because now look at what we have. We have 2 cards on the field for this Icarus attack. We're just going to get eaten alive when we really didn't have to. Something else you want to make sure that you're doing is don't set your Raikou before you activate Gold Sarcophagus, because look here, yet again, there's 2 cards on the field. Now they can Icarus attack and hit my set Raikou and my Gold Sarcophagus. So we want to make sure that we're going to Gold Sarc first, get whatever card we're going to use to fix our hand, and then we're going to set the Raikou. So the Raikou will trade pretty favorably with the Shura. And if they decide that that's the route they want to go, then they can in fact go to the end phase and Icarus attack away their own Black Whirlwind and destroy our Raikou, which honestly, if this is how this goes down, then we should be more than okay with this happening, because they're going massive neg to get over a set card. So make sure that if you're reading Icarus attack, that you're doing everything you can to prevent Icarus attack from being activated on you. What we're going to talk about is actually a situation that I was put in YCS Richmond last November, when I was playing against 10-foot D, who at the time I did not know was 10-foot D, and he was super cool opponent to play against. Really enjoyed our match. But this is pretty similar to how the board was set up. Obviously, I had a lot of cards in my graveyard, but this is just to showcase the read here. He had one card set. He went through like his frog combo and everything. Had a few cards in hand. He's at 7,000. So this is how I remember specifically that if all three of these attacks went through, that I would win the game this turn. So there is the thought that he could have a card like Mirror Force set, right? Frogs do tend to play Mirror Force. Some of them main it, some of them side it. Some of them don't play it at all. So I could theoretically go ahead and just nuke the field, get rid of the threat of the Mirror Force, and then attack for 3,000. But this does leave me pretty vulnerable to stuff like Battle Fader, Gores. The Treeborn Frog is going to get to come back on the next turn. So I decide that it's more likely that he has a card like Phoenix Wing Windblast or a card like Regeki Break, because frogs do typically play those, and they are chainable. So I think about it for a minute, and I think about if I JD pay 1,000 and treat this as Mirror Force, and it is Regeki Break, then I basically just got Mirror Forced anyway. So if you think about it, he would Regeki Break my Judgment Dragon, and my other two cards would immediately get destroyed from Judgment Dragon's own effect. So there's really no plus to go ahead and nuke the field with this guy. Because, like I said, it's more likely that this is Regeki Break or Phoenix Wing Windblast than it is Mirror Force, because Mirror Force is just a 1-of card, and those other cards are 3-of. So I go to my battle phase, I declare an attack with Judgment Dragon directly, and we're going to try to go for game this turn. And what does he have? Nothing other than Mirror Force, which it can be difficult sometimes to make reads in scenarios like this, because it was more likely that a card like this was Regeki Break. And I also feel like, I could be remembering incorrectly, but I feel like he might have drawn this for turn. And a lot of times you don't want to, like if they just draw one card and set it, a good rule of thumb is just say, okay, well, you did not draw Mirror Force off the top of your deck. Like it just did not happen. And those are wise words from Frazier over on the I Am Nerd channel. So a lot of times you just have to like take risks. And like I said, if this attack goes through, like let's just say maybe this is a bluff, the game ends right here. He gets no more turns. But unfortunately, he does have Mirror Force, but it could have been worse. I could have paid 1,000 and he chains Regeki Break and nukes my field anyway. Okay, so here's another situation. So the board state is I'm playing Christius Horn against Vayu Turbo. This is my opponent's graveyard. He's went through some of his trap cards. We see Torrential Tribute's gone, Solemn Judgment's gone, and Mirror Force is gone. So on my turn, I normal summon Jane Lightsworn Paladin. I go to battle phase and I attack him for 1,800. He says that that's fine. So the attack goes through and the summon goes through. So I can go over in my head and think about, okay, well, more than likely, unless he's really just saving it, he doesn't have Bottomless and he doesn't have Deprison. So let's say we just pass turn here. We mill a couple cards in the end phase. He draws for turn, does nothing yet again. It comes back to us. So I can use the information that I had from last turn to know that this is more than likely it's not Bottomless and it's not Deprison. I also know that it's not Mirror Force and it's not Torrential Tribute. So I can play into those cards freely because they are gone. So I can do something like choose to normal summon Aaron without the threat of Bottomless or Torrential. So now if I go to battle phase yet again, I attack for 16, I attack for 18. Now I go over in my head and I kind of think about, what is this card that's set? What could potentially be set that's not getting activated? It could be a card like Mystical Space Typhoon, because I don't have many spells and traps in my deck to activate to use that card on. It could be a card potentially like Heavy Storm that he's just set as a bluff. Could be Starlight Road, but we know most of the time Vayu Turbo does not include Starlight Road in their deck list. So more than likely, this card is Royal Oppression. So we kind of went through all these different thoughts about, could it be Bottomless? Could it be Deprison? Could it be Book of Moon? And more than likely, it's none of those cards, because this damage here is going to add up a lot over the course of the next few turns. We could even consider turning Raiko to attack position, getting in the extra 200 as well. So we can treat this card as Royal Oppression. We could go ahead and special summon a card like Judgment Dragon and try to immediately go for game, or we could just keep kind of doing what we're doing and get him to where he's low enough where he simply cannot pay for Royal Oppression. So let's just say turn after turn this keeps going by. He finds himself at 800 life points, right? So I'm sorry. Turn after turn, we've hit him for so much damage that he's now at 800. Now, if we really want to, we could go ahead and summon Judgment Dragon here. We don't really have to. It's always a good rule of thumb not to change the game state unless you have to. But let's just say for some reason these guys were all dead. He got rid of them somehow. Maybe he decided in Lightning Vortex. And our only play is to special summon one of these guys, right? So we can go ahead and summon JD. We still have the information that this card is still not bottomless, not deep prison. So it only leaves one card that it could be. Unless it's Starlight Road. It could be Royal Oppression. Which, unfortunately for him, now he's so low that he can no longer pay to even use Royal Oppression. So we're just going to attack for game, and that's going to be that. So when you're playing into back row, you kind of want to go over and do your mental checklist. Have I summoned a monster with 1500 or more attack? Have I special summoned? Have I activated a card that destroys 2 or more cards on the field? Have I activated a continuous trap or spell card that MST could be chained to? That kind of mental checklist will kind of help you check off things and get rid of potential threats. Also, checking the graveyard for cards like Solemn Judgment, Mirror Force, and Torrential Tribute can also be a big help because now we know that those cards on the field are not those cards. Another thing that's going to help you learn how to make the correct reads is to stay up to date on the way that people are building their decks. So sometimes people will choose to play cards like Legacy of Yatagarasu in your deck. You need to know, is this a card that people are really playing right now? You need to be able to know, like, maybe that set card they haven't activated could be a deck devastation virus because people are starting to play that card again. All these kind of like checklists that you can go over if you know the deck, it helps you. Like we know that, for instance, most of the time, Vayu Turbo does not play Starlight Road in the main deck or the side deck. So most of the time, if you activate Heavy Storm, it's going to go through unless they have Solemn Judgment. So knowing these deck lists is really going to help you. Knowing that sometimes they will play Spirit Reaper, they will play Chaos Sorcerer. Most of the time you already know that they play Hamster and Raikou and cards like Caius. Knowing in the side deck, are people on a card like Nobleman of Crossout? You know, like is setting a monster face down turn 1, should I be doing that? Anything like that is really going to help you in your way. Here goes back to the example I was talking about with Hero Frogs, that they play like Tripor Geki Break, and sometimes they even play Wind Blast. And then we can see the Mirror Force and Torrential are side decked here. So just having that information, knowing how people are building their decks, knowing the standard deck. And sometimes you will run into people that play something super crazy in their deck. I actually ran up against a zombie player at a 3v3 a couple weeks ago that was playing Karma Cut in a zombie deck. Never really seen that before. I didn't really know how I felt about it. But at the time, it was quite good. So sometimes it's going to be hard to read, especially just depending on the players that you're playing against. While there are certainly a lot of variances that we have within Yu-Gi-Oh!, I do hope that the tips that I provided for you all during the course of this video will help you along your way to becoming better players. While it would be nearly impossible and quite too lengthy to film a video about every scenario that it takes to read your opponent, I do feel like the few that I have given you are a good starting point. So just keep track of your wins, keep track of your losses, keep playtesting, and also check out the video description below. I have a lot of other content creators linked, and their information that they put up is very valuable. So make sure that you're looking at a lot of opinions from a multitude of people across every platform. And inevitably, as you go on and you start to learn more, you will get better at reads, just like you will improve at the game as a whole. So I hope that this video has helped you some along your way. And we all know that Yu-Gi-Oh! Sometimes can be frustrating. So above all else, make sure that you take a break, go outside, have some fun, touch some grass, and just enjoy relaxing. Yu-Gi-Oh! Will still be here tomorrow, so always make sure that you're taking care of yourself.